Hey, Nerd Herd, Rich Dodson here, back again this week with some sneaky starts as we enter Week 10. This is the home stretch of the fantasy football. We all need a little bit of help, definitely whether it be bye or injuries to get into our lineup this week. Let's start with the quarterback. Taylor Heinicke from the Washington football team plays Tampa Bay this week. Why do I like Taylor Heinicke versus Tampa Bay? One, they're probably going to be losing the entire game, which means they're going to have to throw the football to keep pace and try and keep that game and try and get that W versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And when it comes to the Buccaneers, they're pretty good versus the run. They have a very solid up front. When it comes to the back end, they're middle of the road at best. Even in the middle of the road, they're the bottom of that middle. And for Heinicke, he's been up and down quarterback. This is a quarterback who's had over 20 fantasy football points multiple times this year. He's had a couple duds, but he's had a couple really good games as well. I think he's had about 4 games where he's had over 20 fantasy football points. So this week versus Tampa Bay, it's a good time and a good place to get him in your lineup to help you get that much needed W this late in the season. Now, running backs. Who doesn't need running back help? I'll tell you an NFL team that needs running back help, and that's the Cleveland Browns, because right now the Browns have 3 of their 4 running backs on the COVID list. And right now we've seen when these players go on the COVID list, the odds of them coming off in time to play that week are very, very slim. I think it's only happened once so far this season. So that puts you in a position to get Diontae Johnson into your lineup. Diontae Johnson's a very good option this week because right now he's the only option the Browns have, and they're going to have to run the football. And the Patriots have been very mediocre at best when it comes to stopping a fantasy football running back. They're giving up over close to 5 yards per carry, over 4.5 yards per carry, over 150 yards on the ground per game. And this is a player that came in, and when he had all the touches going back to week 7 versus Denver, he gave you a really good game. 168 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And that's on 24 touches. So he's probably going to see right around the same workload if Nick Chubb can't make it back in time off the COVID list. And again, all signs are pointing that he will not be able to do this. So this puts Diontae Johnson as a really good player to get in your lineup versus the New England Patriots. Also, if you need running back help, Jordan Howard of the Philadelphia Eagles. You know, I really thought that Boston Scott would be the backup running back here and get majority of the carries. Maybe that rookie sensation out of Memphis, Kenneth Gainwell, even though he had a touchdown the other day or last week, would be the guy there. But it's really been Jordan Howard who's been getting a majority of the touches. And as a matter of fact, if you go back since Miles Sanders has been hurt, Jordan Howard's been a running back 1. Now the touchdown production helps, but hey, it all adds up to fantasy football points. This week he plays Denver. Denver's been just okay when it comes to stopping a fantasy football running back. Really, I know they just added Von Miller, but they're giving up almost 5 yards per carry on the ground. They're giving up over 150 yards as well. Jordan Howard came in, leads the team in touches. Last week had 17, had 70 yards. Again, not dynamic, doesn't offer anything in the passing game, but he's good enough to help you get it done and give you those high-end running back 2 numbers that you need to get the W. So I'm going to go ahead, get him in my lineup this week, and play him. Receiver. Who needs help at receiver? Well, a good option who might be on your waiver wire this week is Russell Gage. And this week he plays the Dallas Cowboys. And over the last 3 weeks, Russell Gage is wide receiver 26 in PPR leagues. Now, you might say, Rich, that's a high-end wide receiver 3. What's the big deal about getting him in my lineup? Well, to be wide receiver 26 over the last 3 weeks is pretty good for Russell Gage. When one of those weeks, he got you a 0.0 score. Just so happens to be the week I put him in my lineup. So thanks a lot, Russ. But this week he plays Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys in the bottom third of the league when it comes to stopping the fantasy football wide receiver. Russell Gage has had some pretty good weeks. Over the last couple of weeks, I said besides the goose egg, he had 7 catches for 64 yards. He's had 4 catches for 67 yards and a touchdown. He's the number 1 receiver on this team. It's going to be him and Kyle Pitts. And they're going to have to throw the football to stay steady with the Dallas Cowboys. So Russell Gage is in line to put up, again, a double-digit fantasy line for your fantasy football team. I like him this week versus the Cowboys. Get him in your lineup. Get those double-digit fantasy points. And then more importantly, let's get that W. Tight end. Now, sometimes the waiver wire might be pretty thin when it comes to the tight end position because everybody needs them. Everybody needs a backup. And there's a lot of turd Fergusons out there. But I like Dan Arnold this week for the Jaguars versus the Colts. Why do I like Dan Arnold? Dan Arnold, since they traded him, he's been pretty active. Over these last couple of games, he's seen a really good heavy amount of targets. And more importantly, DJ Shark just went on the IR, which means it's going to be LaVisca Chenault and Dan Arnold as pretty much the main weapons here for Trevor Lawrence. And what a great matchup that Dan Arnold has versus this week. He plays the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are terrible when it comes to stopping a fantasy football tight end. So bad, I think they're dead last when it comes to stopping a fantasy football tight end. This is a team that's given up touchdowns to Ryan Griffin from the Jets. Jeff Swaim has found the end zone out here. This is a great position for Dan Arnold this week to get in your lineup at tight end and get coveted points. If he can find the end zone for the Jaguars, he's guaranteed to get you those double-digit points. And maybe with DJ Shark, he can flirt with that 20 number, which is an amazing number for a tight end. I like Dan Arnold's a nice sneaky start this week at the tight end position. Those are it. Those are a couple guys I like this week. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dynasty Rich for any fantasy football help you might need. Make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, and the notifications button below so you can get all of the latest Dynasty Nerds YouTube content that's going to help you dominate your Dynasty League and any help that can help during your redraft team. And of course, we'll be here every single week on the Dynasty Nerds podcast and dynastynerds.com to help you get those W's.